Coming to you from deep within the heart of Texas in our secret underground bunkers, it's the New Republic Radio Show. I'm your host, Keith Clark. Welcome to Monday's edition of the New Republic. I hope you guys have been having a great weekend, a good Father's Day. We had a great one here at the New Republic Underground Bunker. Everything's been good so far. Today's going to be a long show, but that's okay. There's a lot of good things we need to talk about and touch on. Here's a couple of things in the news going on right now. Muslim Brotherhood orders rocket attacks on southern Israel through Hamas. Forbes article, President Obama, the biggest government spender in world history. Why the White House, most world powers are ignoring Syria. Forbes story. Sorry, global warming alarmists, the Earth is cooling. Yeah, that's going to raise some eyebrows. China's space program. Yeah, we're going to be talking about their recent launch here. Also, Obama, golfer or president? Yeah, he's been taken to the greens quite a lot. Let's see here. Also, Obama's new immigration policy. Well, we have lots to say about that. Also, Romney's response to Obama's new immigration policy. And we also have questions from our listeners that we're going to be answering. So, without further delay, first story of the day. Muslim Brotherhood orders rocket attacks. Well, with all the mess that Obama caused in Egypt with deposing Mubarak, you had the Muslim Brotherhood slide in there and basically gain power. So now we have another enemy in the Middle East, thanks to Mr. Obama's policies. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood has now caused rocket attacks on Israel, and this has been one of their stated things. They basically want to get rid of Israel, and they want to turn Israel into part of a huge Arabic state, and they want Jerusalem to be the capital of that huge Arab state. Well, through all the mess that Obama's caused from Egypt to Syria as well as Libya, you have groups like Hamas as well, and the big players in this game now are the Muslim Brotherhood. So you have the Muslim Brotherhood taking over in most of those countries. You have even over in Afghanistan, it looks like Al Qaeda is basically going to step in and take over once we remove ourselves from there. The only place that we did any type of good is in the Middle East, there in Iraq, and somehow we just got lucky. You know, I don't know. I'm not trying to say Bush did anything right there, but he evidently had a little bit more planning and a little more thought process in that particular situation than Mr. Obama has had in any of these other situations. But the problem with that is now we have Egypt against Israel. We have Syria, who, if it falls down, obviously will be against Israel. You'll have Iran against Israel. All these countries over there, basically, you're just going to have one little island of a country that's just basically going to be a world of hurt. By that point, what are we really going to be able to do about it? I mean, short of a nuclear war, there's not much that we're going to be able to do. And this has just caused all kinds of problems, and it just goes to show you the failure that is Mr. Obama's presidency. This is the problem when you have somebody who has absolutely no experience, hasn't even ran a hot dog stand, doesn't know the most basic things about anything like that. When you have somebody with that type of power, these are the type of situations you're going to get. Unfortunately, it's just it's put us in a horrible position. It's made us look bad, and it's really just hurt us all around the globe. Next story, Forbes, President Obama, the biggest government spender in world history. Well, that's not much of a story. We all know that. Just look at the $5 trillion in debt that he's added, which is soon going to be even more. Every day it goes by, that amount gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We're soon going to be over nearly $15 trillion in debt. And most of that is due to Mr. Obama's policies. Let's see here. Going on. Why the White House and most world powers are ignoring Syria. Well, that is a sad situation because of the whole issue when Bush went into Iraq looking for the WMDs. Basically, all the WMDs were moved into Syria. The problem with that is now that regime is failing. If that regime falls, which is the fear of the United States, the fear of Russia, the fear of China, all of those WMDs are now going to be in the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood, of Hamas, of Al-Qaeda, and who knows what they're going to do with that. And that basically hurts the entire world. Now, the problem is the White House can't say, hey, the reason why we're not going into Syria, the reason why we're not doing anything about Syria is because the WMDs from Iraq went into Syria. If they admit that, then now you have the whole media deal with the Democratic Party and all of their whole little house of cards that they have built about, everything was absolutely wrong about going in to Iraq. I'm not trying to say it was the right thing to do, but all of the evidence about WMDs couldn't have just been made up, and all the reports that we're seeing are basically backing up the fact that those WMDs have been moved into Syria. Now, if any of you have gone on the internet and seen these videos of what's going on in Syria, you know what I'm talking about. This is absolutely horrible. If you don't have a strong stomach, I'd recommend that you don't look at these videos. You're going to see videos of men and women and children walking around looking for parts of their chopped up loved ones. I'm talking about they're looking for limbs, hands, arms, legs, heads of their loved ones. That's the kind of abuse that these people are suffering. These thugs are basically from the regime are going in and taking care of anybody that opposes them in very, very brutal ways, very crazy ways. But the news media is not really talking about it because, yes, if we talked about it, we'd have to go in. Then once we got in, the story would break and everybody would know the truth on the whole WMD thing with Syria, and the media is not interested in hearing that, basically letting that truth get out. So, they're going to do whatever they can. They're going to postpone it as long as they can. Sadly, the people in Syria are just going to suffer from that. I'm not trying to say that we all need to America needs to rush there and do something, but, definitely a coalition of everybody, let everybody get a little skin in the game, but something needs to be done because it's just absolutely horrifying what's going on there. Moving on, Forbes, sorry global warming alarmists, the earth is cooling. Yeah, here's an article from Forbes. Let's see, let me read you a little excerpt here. Climate change itself is already in the process of definitively rebutting climate alarmists who think human use of fossil fuels is ultimately causing catastrophic global warming. That is because natural climate cycles have already turned from warming to cooling. Global temperatures have already been declining for more than 10 years, and global temperatures will continue to decline for another 2 decades or more. That is one of the most interesting conclusions to come out of the 7th International Climate Change Conference sponsored by the Heartland Institute. Held last week in Chicago, I attended and served as one of the speakers, talking about the economic implications of high-cost energy. The conference featured serious natural science, contrary to the self-interested political science you hear from government financial global warming alarmists seeking to justify widely expanded regulatory and taxation powers for government bodies or government body wannabes such as the United Nations. Now, this is interesting because all of you people out there on the left that are all been talking about this climate change, this, that, you try to come up with all this bunk science that you use for it. The funny thing is, you keep telling us about all these fossil fuels that we're using causing global warming, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? If you actually knew something about science, if you actually studied something, I don't know, took basic chemistry, you would actually understand that carbon actually causes global cooling, not global warming. So, if it was because the fact that we're using fossil fuels from coal, gas, and oil, then the world would be getting cooler, not warmer. So, you know what? When you go out and you blather all this garbage out, people that have a little bit of science background actually know that you're just talking basically out of your butt, because you don't know anything about the science that you're talking about. You know, you just take your little cliff notes from the TV show that you watched, or the little the internet site that you went to, or the little talk show that you listen to that's, you know, all decrying global warming. You know, that's great if you want to believe that, but we don't want to hear that kind of stuff. Not the people that actually think about things. Because when you open your mouth and you start talking about this kind of stuff, we know that you're full of it. Because the simple fact, you know, science bears out that carbon actually creates cooling. If you go back and you look at the temperature drop since the 1900s, it would actually go right in line with as the carbon rises, because from the 1900s on, we started using gas, and we started, you know, industrial revolution. We started using more coal. Our output went up, and what happened? The temperature went down. But as our output kept climbing, the temperature kept going down. So yeah, if you want to tell me that me driving my car or my truck or whatever, or burning, you know, fuels and fossil fuels and stuff, if you want to tell me that my carbon footprint is causing global cooling, okay, you know what? I'll listen to you. I'll hear what you have to say. But until you actually start using science and using your brain a little bit, just shut up. We're sick of hearing it. You know, we know that the sun and the weather patterns have a lot more impact than humans do on the climate. So that's just something that, you know, we'll just see more of in the next decade. We'll see more and more science that actually comes out and bears the truth, and we'll actually understand that you know, the stuff that people are spouting out today is just garbage. It's just out and out lies. But, you know, I can't help you. Go read a book. You know, look something up online. I don't know. Go take a class. Something. Just do something and shut up for the time being until you learn something. All right. Anyway, China's space program. China launched its most ambitious space program yet on Saturday, carrying its first female astronaut and 2 male colleagues in an attempt to dock with an orbiting module and work on board for more than a week. The Shenzhou 9 capsule lifted off at a schedule at 6:37 p.m. from the satellite launch center on the edge of the Gobi Desert. All systems functioned normally, and just over 10 minutes later, it opened its solar panels and entered orbit. Well, isn't that great? China is in the lead. They're leading the pack as far as science and space is concerned. You know, America's in the back seat now. Actually, we're pretty much in the trunk. But yeah, after Obama basically shut down NASA effectively, we're having to rely on Russia to get our people back and forth up to the space station and do our little experiments and our little stuff. And China's basically gone all out. They're doing their own thing. They don't care about anybody else. They just do what they want in space. Now, the good part is, the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you would say, is that the private sector is doing really well on filling in that hole, and they've already, you know, come up with that one launch vehicle that went up to this space station, brought some supplies up, and then took some supplies and old stuff down. So that's great, but you know, until the private sector catches up, we're going to be having problems with this, because China's going to be in the lead on that. And also, we're going to be really reliant upon Russia and paying them a ton of money to get our people up there. So, yeah, again, another failed policy of Obama.